Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Set Musings. So we're on to the smaller of the two sets in the two set block of Ket. We're on to Hour of Devastation. 199 cards in this set in the boosters, but as you can see there's the usual set shenanigans that we were seeing around this period, where in total there's actually 209 cards in the set, and we'll get onto that in a moment. For the 199 cards there were 15 basic lands, interestingly enough, and we'll see how that manifests itself. 70 commons, 60 uncommons, 42 rares, and 12 mythic rares. And as has been the case for throughout the history of Magic, of course there were premium versions of cards, 4 versions of cards inserted randomly. And you can see here we have the horns expansion symbol, supposed to represent the horns of Nicol Bolas. If you look at the theme of the set as imparted by the artwork, you can sort of see where thematically the set lies. And obviously we'll be taking a look at the tribal aspects through the various colours. As I'm scrolling through here, you can see there's quite a heavy monocolour presence. Here's the 2 colour cards, which again we'll get a bit of a colour breakdown in a moment. We've got some split card style things going on here with Aftermath. Here's our artifacts into our non-basic lands, and you'll see quite a lot of desert stuff going on. So the themes and mechanics as we go through that I'll be bringing up, and you also can keep a lookout for when I look generally at different slices. Nicol Bolas was a theme, deserts, curses, brick counters, -1/-1 counters, split cards, which we've already mentioned. You can see here's the basic lands of the set. Keywords, ability words: afflict, eternalize, exert, cycling, aftermath was in here, and several of those came over from the previous set, in addition to cycling there, which we've seen before in a lot earlier sets in Magic's history. So the 199 set size, where obviously, as we've seen in other sets recently, what we've been looking at, there's cards that go above that. So we've got these 10 cards from the Planeswalker decks that have numbers above the 199. And at the end of this episode I'll go through those Planeswalker decks, as I always do, but I think you can get a feel for already, just the numbering gives away which line up in which deck. And again, we have these cards which some do mention the Planeswalker in the name and also in the rules text, but some just mention just the Planeswalker in the rules text, and some not at all. Again, you can see here's our 2 colour fixing that they include in those Planeswalker decks. So here's our continuation of the invocations. So this was its whole set of its own, but the set was in two parts, the ones that appeared in the previous set in Amonkhet and ones that appeared in Hour of Devastation. And you can see this was a particular theme for the block in terms of the card style and the borders and such like, and how everything was sort of laid out and represents the combination of colours in there. And I think I showed you before, we can sort of get an idea here. So if we net off, now this can be a little bit misleading actually, I don't know whether it's worth doing this, thinking about it. So if you do is reprint, it says 54 cards are reprints, but there's no reprints here. Now if it's anything like the previous set, some of these were effectively reprints of cards that were in the set as well, or in the block, or so yeah, like reprints of reprints, if that makes sense. So yeah, depending on how you look at it. And of course, again, using the term reprint in the set musings episode, I'm talking about reprints of the time the set came out. So yeah, but there was a whole set of, what would you call it, I don't know, rules is the right word, but what you had to bear in mind is if you pulled like a masterpiece card from your booster, because they were randomly inserted into the boosters, the point of them not being part of the set means that while you could play them if you were playing, say, like a sealed event, like booster draft, or things like that, limited, that's the word I'm looking for here, limited event, you could play them. So they're playable in limited. Outside of limited, any formats where they're already legal. So if you then subsequently wanted to use them in another format outside of limited, it was very much, is that card currently legal in that format? So it might be the case that there's cards in here which were printed, reprints of something that's currently in standard, in which case it would be in standard, or reprints of cards that were only legal in, say, Eternal formats, that sort of thing, or Commander, so just bear in mind with these, that was the case, and why there was that separate set code for those, expansion symbol, or however you want to think about it. 8 reprints in the set itself. And again, just one thing you have to be mindful of as I'm going through this, I'm talking about the set as a whole, in terms of both the ones that were in the boosters and the ones that were included in the Planeswalker deck, which were standard legal, even though they would never turn up in, say, booster draft or sealed deck for the set. A little bit confusing with all this stuff going on. So that means 186 cards from the set were not reprints, they were all new cards. Okay, let's look at this. It seems to get more complicated every set I do in terms of the card breakdown, and I get more confused. But yeah, it's worth looking at this. So 11 cards that, as you scroll down, you can see were completely colourless in terms of their colour identity. There was one card which, although here, you know, in terms of casting it, you could use any mana. So it was colourless from that perspective. There was actually a reference specifically in the rules text to a colour. So the colour identity of this was not 0. It's blue, black or red. And then we had 141 cards. Let me just scroll down, this is always to confirm it, which were totally single colour. So single colour in the casting cost. Any other colour references in the rules text in terms of activation costs, those sort of things, were in the same colour as the card. Now, in terms of the split cards, if we do get down to these, which is why I'm unusually for this scrolling through here, because this is something I forget to do. If we scroll all the way down, see, we go through green. So it looks like, and we'll see whether that bears out when we get there. It may be the case that there's no monocolour split cards here, but we'll see. So there's 2 cards where it's one colour in terms of the casting cost, and then there's a second colour somewhere in here in the rules area, activation cost or a reference to generating mana. And here's our 2 colour cards, and you can see it's mixed between these cards, which no doubt will come back to here, and other cards that we'll be coming back to, which were the split cards. So one half is in one colour, another half in another colour. And then above that, so 3 colour stuff, were the Nicol Bolas cards. One was in boosters and one was in the Planeswalker decks. So what sort of tribes do we see in the various colours of Magic? So if we look at white, we're getting angels, cats, birds, zombie jackal there, human warrior, horse. So again, zombies cropped up in white. A lot of humans, the odd camel. And then there's a couple of 2 colour cards here which have white in them. I suppose the big deal is zombies in white. And that was 19 cards. I often forget to mention that actually if we're trying to just see the general balance for the colours. 18 cards in blue. Drake, Bird Warrior, Naga Wizard, Human Warrior, Zombie Cleric, Bird Wizard, Sphinx, Human Warrior, Naga Cleric. So Nagas in blue. Sphinx again. And then the 2 colour stuff with blue in it, God and Elemental, another God and a bird. 22 cards in black, so black was quite slightly more represented than other colours. So you can see some zombies here, a demon, human warrior, a zombie bird. It's always interesting in these sort of sets to see the combination of the creature types. So we've got a zombie jackal warrior, Minotaur warrior, human wizard. We've seen a few Minotaurs as well so far, haven't we? In the block generally. Oh yeah, definitely heavy zombie presence in black here. Another demon, a rat. But of course, as well, the usual things that you'd expect to see in black, like horrors. And a zombie camel. I don't know if that's the first time they've done a zombie camel. Some more gods. So clearly there's a 2 colour god thing going on. These are the ones with black in them, and then a couple of other creatures. And again, this just to remind you, this is only creatures that I obviously do this for, because it's purely a sort of tribal consideration. Okay, red, Minotaurs, Helions, Jackals. So Jackals, yeah, they're cropping up quite a bit in the set. More humans, another interesting combination of, there's a zombie Minotaur warrior, Jackal warrior, elemental, zombie manticore. So yeah, zombies in red here, and minotaurs, beast and lizard. More gods, another elemental. I do love elementals. The artwork always looks so interesting. Oh, there's another one. Do we want to do a special sort in a moment? Maybe we will. Let's do a special sort on elementals. Throw a curveball in there. 23 cards here in green. Yeah, cats were a big thing in the set. See, thematically that ties to the plane theme. I've got a green hippo. More nuggets here. Worms, jackal warrior, spider, bird. Again, we've seen these before because they overlap with colours. And a tenacious hunter. So, let's just do an additional search here because we can. It's real fun. Scryfall searches are just great fun. If you've never messed about in Scryfall, it's well worth it. You can have hours of fun slicing and dicing sets. Oh, there we go. Look. A couple of red elementals, a green one and a blue red. Occasionally in sets you will get a cycle of elementals, but not in this one. So big spells, 12 of them. Now this is of course what contributes to this is, as I think I mentioned before, these split cards. And we'll come back to the functionality of the split cards in a moment, but just remember that. So we got some pretty big ones, these 8 mana spells here. 3 of them. Yeah, but that's definitely bounced up by the split. If we take the split cards out, because there isn't a situation where you're going to be paying for all of this in one go. So if we minus out is, I think that's, there we go, that's just without the split cards, so 10 without the splits. Graveyard stuff was all over the set. So here I'm doing a search for the whole of the Oracle text. So either when you do an FO search in cycling in Scryfall, and what that means is not only does it search through in the actual rules text, but also within this area the reminder text as well. So if it's like here, it's a graveyard effect, it'll pick up any ones of those as well. So yeah, graveyard is mentioned a lot. That's what I'm basically saying here. 54 cards in some capacity. I didn't search the name actually. 43 cards again with a full Oracle search in here, and of course the advantage of doing a full Oracle search is it finds anywhere where the Oracle text has been changed versus the actual text on the original card as well. 43 of those mention discard somewhere, and when we go through the individual keywords and abilities, you'll see which ones keyword wise played with discard. I thought it'd be interesting to see which cards mention bolus either in the name or in the full Oracle text, and bolus was mentioned 5 times either here in the name or down here. "26 references to desert either in the name, in the type, or in the rules text. So desert theme here. Yeah, deserts everywhere. I mentioned curse. There were these aura curses that could enchant a player. There's 3 of those. In terms of brick counters, we had 1 card which referenced the brick counters. So it was a bit better represented in the previous set. But of course, when you're drafting this, doing limited, say, you're going to be, well, you can draft totally just this set, but yeah, normally this is drafted alongside the previous set. -1/-1 counters are a thing. There are 11 cards with -1/-1 counters on it. Split cards, there were 10 split cards. And just to show you, those actually were all cards with Aftermath on it. So with Aftermath, so here's the first bit of the spell. So you just cast this like normal. 2 and a red gives you a damage spell to target creature equal to the number of lands you control. For the Aftermath bit, you cast this spell only from your graveyard, then you exile it. So that's only castable from the graveyard, and then you get the effect there. So you can see somewhere a mixture of instants and sorceries. I don't think, there's one. So I think in the set before we had at least one where the Aftermath was at instant speed, or the effect was at instant speed. So yeah, Aftermath maps to split cards. There's Afflict. So with Afflict, whenever this creature becomes blocked, defending player loses life. So with Afflict, so whenever the creature becomes blocked, you'll see here there is a variation in the life, and that's reflected by this Afflict number. And there were 10 of those cards, blue, black, red, and also colourless. Exit imparts Afflict. Eternalize. So Eternalize, and there's a cost to that. So you exile this card from its graveyard, create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a 4/4 black zombie cat with no mana cost. Eternalize only as a sorcery. So all of the Eternalize cards had a cost. There may be an additional cost here, so we have discard a card as well on this one. And then you exile the card from your graveyard and you create a token that's a copy. So you can sort of see the similarities in the templating across the cards there. Exert. So with Exert, an exerted creature won't untap during its next untap step. So that's basically what Exert does. And when you exert the card, you obviously get something extra, because you're not going to be able to do anything with the creature for one more turn because it's tapped, unless you find another way of untapping it. So exert gives you something, but then, I suppose thematically it makes a lot of sense. You've exerted the creature, so it needs a bit more of a rest period. Cycling. So with cycling, you discard the card, you draw a card. There's a cost associated with that, and you can see there's both cards here, which you can use any colour to cycle, or there are specific colour or variations thereof in there. Also the lands were cycling as well. And here's our desert card. Now this is I'd mentioned deserts before as being a theme here, but inside of that there were a cycle of cycling deserts, and these were those, or one in each colour. They also enter the battlefield tapped if you choose not to cycle them, and once they're untapped then they generate the appropriate colour mana. We then have another cycle which is the spell deserts, so they have an additional spell stapled to them with an activation cost. You have to tap it and sack it, and they're uncommon. The previous cycling deserts were common, so these are uncommon. You've got deserts matter. I keep wanting to say deserts, but I try and refrain from doing that. So these are all cards that improve if a desert is under your control or is in your graveyard. A couple of camels there. Cycle of defeats, so 5 uncommon, same colour Hoser spells, which gain strength if used against a specific planeswalker of the Gatewatch. Each has art by Kieran Yanna. Power Matters Eternalizers, so 5 creatures featuring the Eternalize mechanic, which affects that scale with the power of the creature. Another cycle is something that's been called God's Last Actions. So 5 undercosted rare spells flavoured to match the gods that cause your lands to not untap on your next turn, inspired by Exert. So yeah, there's a relationship in terms of what it does. It's like almost like an Exert type effect. And then we've got Cycle of Hours, so they will have hour in the name. 5 rare spells named after the hours, which serve as the story spotlight cards of the set, and they have mechanics that twist the hours flavour. Now the thing about this is, you'll notice here with this, we've got here, you can actually see it clearly indicates what the story spotlight is on there, so that's cool. We've got cycle of 5 rare split cards taking the place usually reserved for draft, guiding multicolour and featuring the Aftermath mechanic. So we've spoken in the past about draft guiding multicoloured cards. Here you can see that space has been taken up by these Aftermath mechanic split cards. Reversed enemy rare spells, so split cards featuring the Aftermath mechanic. And what they mean by reversed enemy there is it's black white instead of white black in the order, that's all. So red blue, green black, white red, blue green. They're enemy colour combinations, but their order is reversed when you compare it to how it looks on in terms of what you would call normal Wooburg order, where white would be before black on the colour pie, blue before red, black before green, red before white, and green before blue. So 5 uncommon cards in the enemy colour pairs that represent a 2 colour draft archetype. So I wonder if this is implying that the draft archetypes, there's only 5 of them and they're in the enemy colours. So we have zombies, instants and sorceries, -1/-1 counters, exert, and ramp. There. Some partial cycles. We've got a partial cycle of afflict creatures. We've got these ones, which are a set of zombie creatures with the afflict at common and uncommon. So sort of 2 of those, I suppose. Blue, black and red. And all of these, you'll notice, are in Bolas colours, in the Grixis colours. These ones were the 3 uncommon spells that have a choice of 2 complementary options. And here we have, I think they were called, oh sorry, we're not up there yet, jumping ahead of myself. So these are 3 mythic legendary creatures. Again, Grixis. And then we have the Forgotten Gods, which were 2 colours, but the 2 colours are one of the 3 Grixis colours. So 3 mythic rare gods, the Bolos corrupted, with each god having 2 of the Grixis colours. Now, vertical cycle of torments, torment of venom, torment of scarabs, torment of hailfire, that is not hellfire but hailfire. 3 black punisher spells with the choice of losing 3 life, discarding a card in hand, or sacrificing an unlearned permanent. One of which was a aura curse. 14 mythics. Then you can see spread about, but there is a propensity here of, was it gods and planeswalkers, maybe? Well, legendary creatures and planeswalkers, so yeah, legendaries generally. A few other card types there as well in that lovely mythic slot. Basics. So what did they do here to make 15 different, so yeah, you've got they opted to have 2 pieces of alternate artwork, and I've spoken about this on several occasions now. In the recent Land of HOR episodes I talk about it, you know, where you get a big set. Generally that's where the basic land artwork is. It gets reused in subsequent products or in the, you know, the booster pack for the next set, which is a small set from the block. It has a land slot in it, a basic land slot. Then they just use the land from the previous set. But there's a few exceptions, and this is one, particularly where there's some twist to the second set, either thematically or something major happens, like a, you know, a major plot change. So I think in here it was like, you know, Bolos is behind everything. So they did this thing where you've got, you can see here, I don't know how clear it is, can you see like this ruination artwork where, you know, clearly this represents ruined buildings, temples, however you want to think about it. And then there was one piece of full art land with these horns in them. In the others you can also play spot the horn, I think, on these cards. See if you can spot where the horn motif might be on the regular artwork basic lands. If indeed it is actually there. Sort of, where's Bolos, I suppose. And there's our 18, so quite a few non-basic lands, and I believe part of that is due to the fact that we've got a lot of deserts here, so they're there, and then we've got, yeah, a couple of cards obviously from the Planeswalker decks, and then a few other things, like we got this one which generates the Grixis colours. Four Planeswalkers, and if you look here you'll see, you can sort of see which ones were Planeswalkers specifically from boosters and which ones were not. So if we look at the numbering, that one and that one were from the Planeswalker decks. These two were from boosters. 7 cards that are legendary but are not Planeswalkers. So you can see what we got here in terms of the colour balance. So we're missing a mono green one, and we have three gods. 98 creatures in the set. 4 enchantments. 6 auras, of which 3 were those curses which curse the player or enchant the player. I don't think we have any... Yeah, there's no... Beyond that, there's nothing that enchants anything beyond the creature. So we've got players and creatures, I think, yeah. Oh, 3 artifact creatures. 1 solitary piece of equipment. 8 full-blown artifacts with no other type on them. And again, we can play spot the mana generators. So this one here, this one here. I'm trying to remember if that was new artwork. Where's the cutoff? Yeah, it was. That's the old one from M12. I think, I don't know if I prefer this. Excuse me, I just need to take okay, yep. Ooh, 26th instance. So, sort of usual things we'd expect. I'm just again looking to see what they've stapled together set themes. So we're seeing stuff stapled together with cycles. Obviously, here it's interesting. We've got some namesake cards. Which were those defeats. So those are the 5 uncommon same colour Hoser spells, which gain strength if used against a specific planeswalker of the Gatewatch. Same artist as well. Pretty sure I did cover that. Sandblast is in here. Yeah, so I'd say that's one thing you at instant speed you notice here. There's 1 in each colour. We've got modal is a thing. Card draw. So there's ones here that clearly, care about certain types actually. There's not quite as many. Is that just one that has cycling stapled to it? There's a couple and they're both in blue. And of course a lot of these things were intermeshed with the graveyard and the various themes that tried to get stuff into the graveyard. And then down here we've got these split instants or split spells that may contain or will contain at least one of the spell parts of the split, which is at instant speed. And so so they did combine up themes of the set. There's 33 sorceries. That seems a lot for a smaller set. Again, like modal creeping in. Maybe we're going to see much more. Oh, look at these are got quite unique twists on them. I imagine, looking at the fact that we don't have many in each colour, apart from there's quite a few in black. Oh yeah, these as well, the hours. Yeah. We've got a lot of these were totally, all sorcery, both in the first part of the spell and the aftermath, so yeah. Yeah, lots of, how you think about it, cards that reference specific things in the set. Types of things. Okay, back to our full set. I don't really think there's much more I want to say about that. Price wise, so if we ignore the price of the invocations, what are we seeing here? So we've got a top price of around $25 currently. Obviously this wasn't the price when they went out. Down to 21. Are we going to see such a fall off that we've been seeing in recent sets? It's a bit slower here, $16. 16. And then, wow, that's interesting. Yeah, look at the drop. So it goes from above 15 for the first 4, and then bang, the Bolos card from, interestingly, from the Planeswalker deck. And then a drop. Let's look at the balance versus EDH rec in terms of what stuff bubbled to the top. So for the cards that weren't reprints, for the new cards at that point in time, Abrade, Scavenger Grounds, Rumnap Excavator, Torment of Hellfire, Mirage Mirror are up there. There's a couple of gods up there as well in the top, 10, I suppose. It's interesting always to see whether there are any lands in the set that are up there. Now let's look at the reprints. Oh, of course, Traveller's Amulet was in the set. Another, that would have came up when we looked at the artifact. Another mana-related artifact. I'm sorry, no. I'll wind that back. Another. Well, yeah. When it searched for land, it might be better. Land Tutor. Okay, Woodland Stream. So this is from the Planeswalker deck. Unsummon, Strategic Planning. So how did that mesh in? I imagine Traveller's Amulet to be quite high up when you combine the two lists. Interesting. So are they well above? Yeah, okay. Obviously it could be the fact that there are cards in Magic that do a better job, that get played over Traveller's Amulet currently. But yeah, interesting to see how many, again, against this is a specific ranking, but bubbled up. I just want to make sure I've actually got that right, because sometimes what did I do there? That was, put it back on the auto. Just make sure that's coming out right. So yeah, these are a lot higher up. Let me just Yep, so stuff really has bubbled over the top. And of course a lot of these deserts as well. You've got these cycling cards which are popular in monocoloured decks. Okay, let's look at the order on EDH Rec versus the legendary creatures. So top of the pile is Razaketh, the Foul-Blooded. You can see there were 3 gods in the set. So 4 monocoloured, 3 two-colour. Now, just taking a look at the set in terms of the Planeswalker stuff, the decks. So there were 2, Nissa and Nicol Bolas, and this is the breakdown of the deck. You can see here's the 2-colour card. Did they drop down the rare count here now? It's interesting. Maybe it was always that low. So a mythic, 2 rares, and then 1 additional rare. What about the Bolas deck? Yeah, mythic, 2 rares, and then 1 additional rare. So that one was 3. How did they fix this? So they got Cinder Barons in there and Crypt of the Eternals from the set. So yeah, that's something. Or fixing for the 3-colour. Okay, so what am I going to be doing for the episode of Commander Durdle? So I thought what I'd do is the Locust God. This looks like an interesting one. I know it's not the highest ranking of the of these. If I'd done that, I would have ended up with Razaketh, but I just thought it was an interesting thing to build around. So we've got this: whenever you draw a card, create a 1/1 blue and red insect creature token with flying and haste. 2 blue-red, draw a card, then discard a card. When the Locust God dies, return it to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. So I believe this theme is called Wheeling. And there's a number of different themes you could use with the Locust God. So you could do Wheeling, which I believe is the most popular one on EDH Rec. Wizard Tribal, Cantrips, Spell Slinger, Polymorph, Discard, Spell, Copy, Cycling, all things that have been tried out, at least in terms of what's been submitted to EDH Rec. So what I did was I just basically pulled all the cards that play to that in some way or may complement a token theme, but we'll go through the cards individually in the episode. Thanks for checking out this episode. Bye for now, and I will catch you in the next one.